"Step out of the car now, Officer Liam." Parker barked, his voice slicing through the silence of the parking lot like a whip. Standing across from him was Evelyn Moore, calm and composed. Her posture was steady, but there was a firmness in it, a quiet strength. She was dressed in plain clothes, standing beside her unmarked patrol car, an image of authority hidden beneath a seemingly casual appearance. "I'm authorized to be here," she stated, her voice steady. But Parker wasn't listening. His hand hovered near his holster, a silent, threatening gesture. "Don't argue with me," he sneered. "Step back, or I'll make you." The animosity in the air was thick, almost tangible, wrapping around Evelyn like an insult. Raising her hand in an attempt to de-escalate, Evelyn tried to reason with him, her voice calm. "You don't want to do this. Just let me." But before she could finish, Parker acted. He moved quickly, aggressively, shoving her. Evelyn stumbled, her back hitting the patrol car with a harsh thud. "People like you don't belong here," he sneered. Her breath hitched. "People like you." Those words, sharp and spiteful, stung more than the ache in her back. As she straightened up, brushing dust off her jacket, she locked eyes with him. "What did you just say?" she demanded, her voice unwavering. "I said, you don't belong here." Parker's voice dripped with condescension. "Now leave, or I'll call for backup." His posture screamed arrogance, his misplaced sense of authority blinding him to the reality. But Evelyn did something that stopped him dead in his tracks. Slowly, she reached into her pocket. Parker flinched, his hand shooting toward his weapon, but she wasn't pulling out a gun. No, it was far worse for him. She revealed her badge, the shiny emblem glinting in the light. Chief of Police. The color drained from Parker's face. For a moment, he was frozen, speechless. He couldn't move. All he could do was process the reality that he had just physically shoved his superior officer. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice calm but firm, like steel cutting through the tension. "Let me explain something to you," she said. "I don't answer to you. In fact, you answer to me." The silence that followed felt deafening. Parker fumbled for words, stammering incoherent excuses, but Evelyn wasn't finished. "Do you even know who I am?" she asked, her tone sharp enough to pierce the air. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He was choking on his own arrogance, struggling to come to terms with the weight of his own actions. What followed set off a chain of events no one could have predicted. Parker's fate, and Evelyn's, were about to intertwine in ways neither of them could have foreseen. The humiliation Parker had dished out so easily was about to become his undoing, but not in the way anyone had expected. The morning after the incident, the precinct felt unusually quiet. A heavy, unspoken tension rippled through the department. Evelyn sat at her desk, fingers pressed to her temples, reading through the report she had demanded from Internal Affairs. Sleep had been a fleeting thought the night before. The details of Parker's arrogance kept replaying in her mind, like an endless loop. Her office door creaked open, and Deputy Chief Nathan Martinez stepped inside. His face was tight with concern. "Chief," he began carefully, "we've got a situation brewing. Parker knows what's coming, and he's already talking to some of the officers in a circle, trying to rally support." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Support for what?" "He violated every protocol in the book. There's no defense for what he did." Nathan hesitated. "It's not about defense. It's about loyalty. Some of the old guard, they don't see you as one of them. They'll frame this as you being too harsh, too political." Evelyn smirked, though there was no humor in it. "Too harsh? He assaulted his superior officer without cause. If I were a man, they'd be falling over themselves to condemn him. This isn't about loyalty, Nathan. It's about fear of change." Nathan nodded, but didn't say more. He knew she was right. The old guard was notoriously stubborn. "The review panel meets in 3 days," he said. "Do you want me to take the lead on this?" "No," Evelyn replied firmly. "This is mine to handle. Parker needs to understand that actions have consequences, not just for him, but for everyone who thinks they can operate above the rules." Back in the locker room, Parker paced like a caged animal. A few officers lingered nearby, their faces a mixture of discomfort and complicity. Officer Ben Carver, one of Parker's closest allies, leaned against a bench, watching him carefully. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Parker," Ben said, trying to sound reassuring. "It's not like you knew she was the chief." Parker snapped, frustration lacing his voice. "That's not the point."
"She's going to make an example out of me."
"Do you know what that'll do to my career? My pension?" Ben shrugged, offering a half-hearted suggestion. "Maybe just apologize. Say, it was a misunderstanding. That usually works." Parker stopped pacing, his eyes blazing as he turned toward Ben. "You think this is about an apology? She wants to humiliate me. I'm not going to let her win." Back in her office, Evelyn reviewed the footage from the parking lot. It was as damning as she remembered. Parker's aggressive stance, his refusal to listen, the shove. It was all there, crystal clear. But what stuck with her was something else. The look in his eyes. Not respect. Not even caution.
But disdain.
A knock at her door snapped her out of her thoughts. Nathan stepped in again, looking more concerned than before. "Chief, there's chatter," he said. "Parker's talking about filing a grievance. He's claiming you're targeting him because of..." Evelyn pressed. "Because of what?" Nathan hesitated. "Because of race." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "He's pulling that card?" Nathan nodded grimly. "It's desperate, but it might stick with some of the guys who already don't like how you're running things." Evelyn sighed, standing up and crossing her arms. Let him dig himself deeper. The facts are on my side, and the footage doesn't lie. If he wants to turn this into a public spectacle, I'll be ready." The public spectacle was already beginning to take shape. By the next day, whispers about the incident had spread beyond the department. Union representatives were asking questions, and some officers were visibly choosing sides. Later that evening, Evelyn walked into the precinct's main floor. Conversations hushed as she stepped up to address her team. "I'm sure you've all heard about the incident in the parking lot," she began, her voice steady but firm. "I won't go into details because this matter is under review. But let me make one thing clear. Accountability applies to everyone, no matter their rank, tenure, or reputation. Our job is to serve and protect, and that starts with respecting each other and the community we serve. If anyone has an issue with that, my office door is open." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. Parker stood at the back of the room, his jaw clenched as he listened. After the meeting, Ben approached Parker, his tone more cautious this time. "She's not backing down, Parker. Maybe you should." Parker interrupted, his voice low but filled with seething anger. "She wants to humiliate me. I'm not going to let her win." What Parker didn't realize was that Evelyn wasn't IND.